Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trylko from the Sons of UCF, joined by Eric Lopez of the Black and Gold Banneret. Welcome to Around the Kingdom. Elo, hello.
Oh, Trace, coming up on the fastest UCF show around. Primetime UCF in Utah on a Black Friday night on Fox. What's the meaning of that? Oh, the future of college athletics. Where is it going? Who should be concerned? UCF Baseball making the NCAA tournament, but who has a bigger gripe with the baseball committee? UCF Baseball or Trace Trylko? We'll explain on this edition of Around the Kingdom.
Before we get going in all of that, let us welcome in the third member of our team. He is Adam Eaton from the Sons of UCF. Keeps an eye on the clock, keeps us on our toes. Adam, hello.
Gents, greetings. First off, happy Memorial Day to all those who have served and sacrificed. And secondly, speaking of sacrifice, Trace, are you going to go to Tallahassee? You hate Tallahassee. I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. We will check in on baseball, check back with you, Adam, in a bit. Let us begin with football, Elo. Black Friday. Remember when it was all the rage? It was UCF and that team from Tampa. Move over to that old rivalry. It's now Utah at UCF on Black Friday. Prime time on Fox. Title game implications, Elo?
It could be. That's what they're hoping for. Utah is going to be one of the favorites to get to the Big 12 title game. So that's going to be significant from that portion. UCF, high expectations. Great atmosphere on a Friday night and Black Friday. Yeah, where are those people that wanted that USF game on Black Friday? Outside of that one fluke year in 2017 when USF actually didn't lose games, this would never equal this. I would say this will be the biggest Black Friday night game in UCF football history if this UCF football team plays to its potential. It's that significant. Fox primetime. Could have Jeff Allen's good friend Tim Brando in town calling the game. I mean, that could be huge.
By biggest game, do you mean attendance? Do you mean TV ratings? What are you defining?
I think it could be the biggest game. If UCF is in the mix for the Big 12 title game, that's more significant than even the USF game. Remember, the USF game was just to get to the American Conference title game. Here, you're playing a much bigger brand in Utah. You beat them, and it gets you to the Big 12 title game, you've got a chance more than to make the playoffs. That's significant, Trace. That's something that the program's never had before. Ratings-wise, I got to see what the competition will be like. I'm sure ESPN and ABC will have a football game. There's some college basketball games. But I would not be surprised. That game could probably, if both teams are good, and it lives up to it, that could be a 3 to 4 million viewer game.
Which, TV industry pretty well. If one or both teams are duds and it means nothing, do they reconsider primetime on Fox?
At that point, they got no choice. But remember, it's football. People just eat up football. You think folks are just like, these two teams are no good. I'm not going to watch football. No, people are still going to tune in. I think at worst, that game still does 1.5 million, 2 million viewers in that slot because that's what people are going to watch is football on Black Friday. Remember, the NFL is on Amazon earlier in the day, so it's no NFL competition at all. But you know who will have NFL college football, wouldn't have NFL competition? That's during the playoffs because, of course, they will. And it looks like ESPN is doing an audible as they have got a deal with TNT, yes, TNT Sports, to exclusively televise 2 first-round games this upcoming year in the college football playoff. They'll do it for the next 5 seasons. Additionally, starting in 2026, they'll have 2 quarterfinal games of this college football playoff that will be airing on Turner Sports. We don't know if TNT will have the NBA, but now we know they'll have college football. Trace, your reaction to this?
I don't care. Just tell me where the game is, unless it's on a channel that I struggle to find. What was it, FS2? And I don't get CBS Sports Network, so I'm glad UCF's not on that channel anymore. But I can find TNT fairly easy, and I don't care. I don't care what channel it's on. I do find it interesting, though, that it's ESPN that's sub-licensing these games to TNT. Are they trying to defer their costs a bit on that multi-billion-dollar TV package?
I think that's part of it, and the other part of it is they don't. I'm guaranteeing you, the games that TNT is going to get are going to be those 2 playoff games that goes head-to-head on December 21st against the NFL. The NFL had games scheduled on broadcast television, I believe on CBS and Fox that day. ESPN's a partner with the NFL. The NFL has already gone on air saying they're not real thrilled that college football decided to have a Saturday college football playoff head-to-head. The NFL's responded with the Chiefs. I think ESPN's like, Hey, NFL, I hear you. I agree with you. We're just going to dump these games to Turner because nobody's going to find Turner. Nobody's used to saying Turner with college football. I disagree with you. That's going to be the casual fan will not go to find that game. Diehards will, but the casual fans will watch the NFL instead. The college football is going to take a pounding when it comes to the TV viewership that in that weekend. They need to reconsider this whole playoff scheduling.
Well, I also think it's going to be interesting to see who are the announcers for these games, what kind of arrangement TNT makes in that regard as well. But yeah, I agree with you on the casual fans. Diehards will find it. College football is going to learn they have to get out of the way of the NFL. We talked a little bit earlier about UCF and Utah, but there's still not a lot of love for UCF coming out of spring camp. On3 with its rankings and its ratings on how teams did during spring. UCF 8th in this Big 12 behind Utah, who came in number 1. What do you take in this survey after survey, different college football outlets, not putting a lot of stock in UCF's portal class and the turnaround that a lot of Knights fans expect in year 2 in the Big 12?
I think a lot of these outlets are listening to what you have to say, Trace, because you've been just as critical. Saying Gus is good for 4 losses. I think there's some people there what maybe agree with you on that. Plus, I think there's still questions about whether UCF can compete in the line of scrimmage. I don't agree with 8th. I think that's very low. I mean, Iowa State, like they really are juggernaut, Matt Campbell. I don't buy that. Now, part of this, though, is UCF does have to go to West Virginia. They got to go to Iowa State.
So both ranked ahead of them in these power rankings from On3.
So I don't know if that plays a factor in that, but like Kansas State lost a lot of people too, yet they're getting the benefit of the doubt at number 2. Look, in a way though, isn't that a good thing, Trace? Do we want? Maybe it's good that the national perception is UCF not as high. Maybe that's a better thing than having the expectations too high. Even though that's not going to work with the locals, we all know the local media is going to hype this up that this is the best UCF team, most talented team of all time. That's my prediction, Trace. Somebody in July or August, whether it's a TV guy or a local media person, will say, might be UCF Mike on the Sons of UCF Live as well, that this is the most talented UCF team ever. So the hype is going to be there locally, but nationally, I think it's a wait-and-see approach.
I know there's a lot to criticize the national media about that covers college football, but there seems to be a certain skepticism about UCF, and it certainly seems like, prove it. Quit talking about it. You're the future of college football. Start showing it on the field. So I think this is a big prove it year for UCF to turn around those naysayers who continue to be down on UCF's prospects this fall.
Well, and the question is it because of the on-the-field results the last few years, Trace, or do you think this goes back to even 2017 when a lot of national media had an issue with the UCF and the claiming of a national title trade? I think that's an interesting question. Is this about a perception about UCF and some people being cynical of this program? I'm really interested to see that because normally media likes to look for that, kind of the under the radar team to kind of surprise people, but that does not seem to be UCF right now.
It seems to me to be a program that's a lot of talk. That's how I would define it. You talk about 2017. I don't know if there's chapped reporters and columnists still talking about 2017, but UCF keeps talking itself up and I think needs to deliver the results on the field that make that Utah-UCF game on Black Friday a meaningful game. And then I think the commentary will change.
Well, it's a monster year for football. Every year is a big year for football, and that might be the case moving forward even more with the officially now of the fact that, folks, we've got revenue sharing coming to athletes. Trace, we talked about this on the last episode about the settlement. What does this mean now for college athletics, Trace, is the big question moving forward. Now knowing that these conferences owe money to these athletes, they're going to now be able to pay the athletes moving forward. What is the ramifications here you think it concerns moving forward?
Well, I think they keep making it up as they go along, right? I mean, we're only a couple of years removed from players wearing their branded shirts, Gus Malzahn wearing a Sam Jackson shirt at the podium, and how that morphed into Kingdom NIL, and how relevant is that still? And what is the salary cap going to look like? What are you going to pay these players? Is it just football? And what are the Title IX implications? I mean, these are all a lot of questions that don't seem to have answers, and they keep just doing this on the fly. For UCF, though, where does it come up with the money to pay a roster full of players? Does it make Kingdom NIL more or less relevant? Do you still need that? Where's all this? We asked this question last week. Where's all the billions coming from? Where's all this money coming from with paying players?
If you're not in a power conference with a big TV deal, how are you surviving, Trace? How is this going to work moving forward? That's number one. Number two, I think you bring up an interesting point. You have does NIL and the schools now just combine? Do they just join forces officially and just work together more officially than even before, shall we say? I think that's number two. You mentioned a great point. Everybody's focused about paying football and basketball players. What about the volleyball player? What about the soccer player? What about the tennis player? What's going to happen there? And are they going to be casualties, Trace, of some of these schools? They're like, man, we just don't have we're over our heads, but we're not going to dump football. So we're going to dump tennis instead, or we're going to dump men's soccer to save some money. I think you're going to see some schools dump sports and cut them to save some money, Trace. I don't see this as financially suitable moving forward long term.
What are the Title IX implications? Is Title IX about opportunity for female athletes, or is there equality in pay a factor in that as well? And when you talk about cutting sports, you have to keep a balance between scholarships between men's and women's sports. So what are you chopping there, Elo? I mean, and I'm not floating this but would you chop a men's tennis but keep the women's tennis because you need the scholarships? I mean, you saw this in the pandemic when the pandemic came. Cincinnati dropped men's soccer. You've seen some sports dropped across the country that were not revenue producing. Yeah. At what point does that come into play? And I think it's still being written as we go along here.
Well, the other thing could be maybe that money is going to go towards a couple of sports, but some sports may not get any of that money or very little, and you might see an imbalance as far as certain teams that can have the finances to compete and certain sports within that can't compete because they don't have the resources.
Yeah, talk about show me more money. FedEx investing $25 million into Memphis's NIL. Of course, FedEx, a Memphis-based company. Is this now the future? We've talked about sponsorships. It used to be the car dealership or the local restaurant that was sponsoring in the program. When will UCF go after dollars such as Darden, which is Central Florida's only Fortune 500 company, behind Olive Garden and Red Lobster, right? That's in a lot of difficulty right now in the news. You've heard that. Is that now part of the future of this, is that you're going to have this massive infusion of corporate dollars into programs from sponsors?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, let's be real. College athletics is becoming a minor league system. It's maybe pro sports. Well, what do all these pro sports have, Trace? They have, big sponsors like FedEx that they sponsor all over the stadium or with their franchise teams' logos, press conferences. Absolutely. If you're college sports, that's what the next direction you've got to go and get that kind of money from UCF, from wherever it is. I heard there's a big company in Orlando. I don't know if you've heard. It's called Disney. They're pretty big. That could be.
Except they're California based and not Orlando based from a corporate structure.
Oh, but saying you better start thinking outside the box, Trace. If you're UCF, you can't just it's not like you can just hold your hand. You've got to come up and talk to different people and see what you come up with, because I guarantee you all the other schools are going to do that. And certainly schools like Alabama's of the world are going to have an advantage, because when you're in Tuscaloosa, you're the only game in town, as you know very well, having lived there. The issue that UCF has, you got all these business corporate partners in Orlando, but you're not the only game in town. I would argue this is a Orlando Magic town, and then you have other things to do in Orlando. That's the challenge that UCF has.
How far away are we from corporate sponsor logos on jerseys, and how many post-game interviews are going to sound like a NASCAR post-game interview in which we hear Mikey Williams on the men's basketball team touting this brand or that brand for UCF Athletics? I mean, say it won't happen. Really? Again, a couple years ago, we were talking about players peddling T-shirts and snack food and the like, and now we're here. So I don't think we're that far removed from that, especially with a brand like FedEx putting $25 million over a period of years into Memphis, right? That's good corporate synergy with a local brand and the university, the flagship university in the town. But you're right. You're now competing. If we've been talking about terminology, you're competing against your own NIL for dollars from fans. You've got to balance facility upgrades with paying players, paying coaches, acquiring talent through the portal. And now, boy, good luck, UCF, if you're competing against the Orlando Magic in the greater Central Florida market for corporate sponsors.
Well said. I think that's all challenging questions in the coming years for UCF and for all college athletics, really.
All right, let's lighten the mood. And let's bring back in Adam and time for this week's silly game.
Appreciate that. I can lighten the mood. All right, gentlemen, with all due respect to the upcoming topics, I want to start here. I know we're going to talk baseball right after this segment here. So let me start with this, Elo. I won't spoil the news for those who have been living under a rock. But Elo, who is, in your opinion, the MVP of this UCF baseball team this season?
Wow. It's a great question, obviously, with the great season that they've had. I would say really, you can make the argument the MVP is the pitching coach for UCF. Think about the turnaround on the pitching staff from where they were last year, ERA over 5, to this year where I think they're closer to 4 rates. I mean, the shave of runoff, I think what they've done there would be one. If you want to tell me which player, I think the player you got to bring up is somebody like Dom Stagliano, who's an all-conference guy, has become the ace of this team and really kind of made it more stable of a rotation.
Yeah, I was going to say Stagliano, but, to your point, Elo, you've heard player after player credit Coach Wallace and the change in coaching staff, right, for infusing a great deal more confidence and just the advice and the coaching that they've provided. I think you've seen Dom Stagliano. He got the start in the opening game of the Big 12 tournament Monday during the media availability. Coach Wallace said most likely he gets the start Friday in the NCAA regional. So I'd say forget the stats, forget that record for him. He's moved into that starting role. I think he's become the MVP.
All right, next one for you. A lot of excitement. The EA Sports college football game will come out in July. A lot of excitement about this. Has been almost 10 years since we saw a game, and we saw some previews of some screenshots, some screen grabs, some cover shots. But let me start with this. Trace, here for you. If you could pick one current UCF football player to be on the cover and one past UCF football player to be on the cover of a new college football game, who would you pick? Who's the current player that you'd want on the cover? Who's the past player you'd want on the cover?
Well, from that question, I kind of think about who's the face of the program right now. And I think that's RJ Harvey, one of the top running backs in the country. And for me, you got to go back to Dante Culpepper is still the prime face in the UCF football program history.
Think former player, you go Mackenzie Milton, right? Jumping in the air. That's your cover, Adam, right? You mentioned that against Memphis, 2018. That's your cover. Current RJ Harvey is a good pick. I'll go different. I'm going to go about anticipation. Your new starting quarterback, KJ Jefferson, on the cover.
Ooh, KJ. All right, that's a good choice. All right, Elo, this is for you. Last week, we asked you for Mount Rushmore. You gave us 19 people, which, by the way, doesn't fit on Mount Rushmore. But what you did do is spawn a question for me. You talked a lot about dynamic duos. Yeah. You mentioned Jada Cody and Shannon Doherty. So, Elo, my question for you is, who is the best dynamic duo at UCF history in all athletics? When we think about two players whose names are synonymous with each other, who are those two players for you?
Well, first of all, it's a good time to plug my column on blackeaglebanner.com on the great dynamic duo that is Jada Cody and Shannon Doherty in UCF softball. So thank you, Adam, for that. I will give you, how about this dynamic duo? Since we took a little baseball, we're in a baseball mood. Jason Arnold, Justin Pope.
Yeah,
1-2 punch, paces. Best UCF baseball team ever, 2001. Rich Wallace was a player on that team with Jake Bergman. If they had better facility, if UCF wasn't so cheap, they would have hosted as a national seed. Instead, they had to go to South Carolina. I think that team could have gone to Omaha. It's the best UCF team they've had with those two arms. Arnold and Pope, 2 Hall of Famers. That's my dynamic duo.
I think that's a great dynamic duo. This is more really spawning off of an iconic play, but I'd say Bortles and J.J. Wharton as the face there of a dynamic duo in UCF history that fans can resonate with.
All right, last one, Trace. I'll start with you. I saw this on Twitter today. So, and these are the ground rules, Trace. You don't like to answer my question. All right, so here's the question. You are stuck.
You're setting up that I'm not going to like it,
because you're not going to answer the question. I know you. You're stuck in an elevator, and you can pick one person from either just past history, so we had just historical reference, or a celebrity to be stuck with in that elevator? Who's the one person you want? You can't pick your 6th grade teacher or your dentist from when you were 10 because you're going to do that kind of stuff to me. So I need one celebrity or one historical person that you want to be stuck in an elevator with.
I'd love to talk to Ben Franklin in an elevator about electricity and how this whole elevator thing was working. I don't know. I hate these questions on the fly. Goodness, I'm going to waste all of my time. I think as a historical figure, I think a recent president in Barack Obama, I think you could have a very long conversation with him in an elevator. So that's who I'd put.
As somebody who's actually been stuck in an elevator before, 12 years ago. Thank you for the reminder, Adam, on that.
Who are you stuck with?
Nobody. I had to call. It was at softball, and it was right before a broadcast, and I had to press the emergency button. Thankfully, people came, and I got on the air. So,
spoiler alert,
I did get on the air.
12 years ago, or you'd have been at 599. It would have never happened.
Or I would have been there forever. Yeah, it would have been forever. You guys would never have met. I'm just stuck. Hey guys, every elevator open? If I'm stuck in an elevator again, that's just why I don't go on elevators as much at softball. But anyway, if I were to get stuck again and I could get some celebrity, that's easy. As a Friends fan, I'm going Jennifer Aniston, and I don't think I need to explain that answer, right?
Well, that's pretty good.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. I mean, I can't. Quite a contrast between you two and your selection.
I'm not sure how much Elo's talking. He's just sitting there.
Gotta have a good time. You might as well entertain yourself if you're gonna be stuck in an elevator.
That's fair.
Thank you, Adam. Elo.
All right. Well, UCF Baseball. We wrapped up the season at the Big 12 tournament, 35-19. Spoiler, as you mentioned earlier, are in the NCAA tournament. They'll be going to Tallahassee. They got to the Big 12 semifinals where were beat up by Oklahoma State 10-1. They go 2-1 in the Big 12 tournament. Some people upset about the format where it's double elimination until it's not a double elimination in the semis and the final. Oklahoma State ended up winning the Big 12 tournament over Oklahoma. Your thoughts overall on the week that was in the Big 12 tournament, which I think we found out, Trace, on Monday, it was very important for UCF.
Yeah, I think most Knights fans were saying 1 win. Some were saying it needed 2. UCF, amongst the last 4 in, came as a surprise on Monday. I think any draw you're going to have is going to be difficult. But, look, it's Tallahassee again. It's at FSU, where UCF has not fared particularly well through the years. It's a tall task getting out of this regional, but kudos to Rich Wallace and his staff, blending all of these players, turning the roster over, and putting UCF back in an NCAA regional for the first time since 2017. So from that regard, successful season. I think they've got their work cut out for them. Coach Wallace said everybody's lacking depth at this point, but I think we saw UCF wither there in that game in which they lost to Oklahoma State, the eventual champions in the Big 12. I think it's difficult. You got to stay in that winner's bracket, but can UCF get out of it? Yes, but Florida State's going to have to stumble.
Florida State, the number 8 national seed, the clear storyline there. Link Jarrett, the head coach, and Rich Wallace coached together at Notre Dame and, of course, last year at FSU. Got some former UCF players on that FSU team, very well known, like Cam Leiter, who'll be coming out of the bullpen. UCF will open with Alabama Friday night, 6 o'clock, under their first-year head coach, Rob Vaughn, who was the head coach at Maryland last year when they played UCF in Orlando. He's one of the top rising coaches. And then Stetson, as the 4, has beaten both Florida State and UCF this year in midweeks. This is a tough regional. And in college baseball, more than any other sport, Trace, it's there's narrow margins. That's a word you've used this year very well. The thin margin of error in college baseball is not that big. I can make the case that all 4 teams in this Tallahassee regional are capable of winning this regional, because that's what happens in college baseball. Remember a few years ago, Stetson won the regional with Logan Gilbert, who's now in the Major League Baseball with the Seattle Mariners. They're not as good as that team. They're capable of beating both Florida State or UCF, Alabama. UCF could easily get to the regional final and win this regional, or they could easily go 0-2. That's the kind of regional this is. Hitters Park, especially to right field, UCF cannot afford to leave runners on base like they did in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, they left too many runners on base. And they're going to have to continue to be good in their use of relief pitchers and get as long an outing as you can out of Dom Stagliano and Ben Vespi, because you're going to have to play multiple games in a couple of days. It's not going to be that same format where you get that day off there necessarily, right? So good luck to UCF as it goes to its first NCAA regional since 2017. All right, Elo. Oklahoma State wins the Big 12, and I think a deserving champion. Where were you on this, by the way? I saw a lot of people rooting for Oklahoma State. Were you one of those that was rooting for an Oklahoma or a Texas across all the sports? It was Texas that won 15 Big 12 championships this year on its way out to the SEC. Or do you root for a team in Oklahoma State that will be back again next year facing the Knights in baseball?
I think you root for the team that's going to come back, and that'll be your preference. But I'll be honest. It wasn't something that was thinking in my mind there, but oh my goodness, Oklahoma wins. What are we going to do? It's not like that big of a deal, but UCF played both teams. I think if anything, you felt good that Oklahoma State wins that Big 12 tournament because it makes your 3 wins you had against Oklahoma State even more impressive, which again helps them make the tournament, as we'll get to here momentarily. Was a little bit closer margin as far as making the field than we thought. So I'm not like anti-Texas and Oklahoma, though. I mean, it is what it is. They're part of the league, and, you just let the best teams win.
But you got to give Texas credit. I mean, they dominated across these sports this year. They got –
Well, they always have. They have a great athletic department. Yeah, and they got a lot of money there. By the way, 3 Big 12 teams in the World Series in softball, the most of any conference in softball. Just saying. I'm just saying. Speaking of saying, we got Trace. You don't want to even bring it up. You don't even want to bring it up, but I will bring it up. Stocks. Oh, I love stocks. Baseball and college softball. College baseball about to begin the regionals. Lots of network. College softball was all over television. Trace, both baseball and softball for UCF makes the NCAA tournament this year. It's the second time ever that softball and baseball made the tournament the same year. 2012 was the other year. Both are going to Tallahassee. Both are going to be 3 seeds. Both are playing teams from the state of Alabama. Who are you buying stock moving forward? UCF baseball and college baseball as a whole, or UCF softball and college softball?
I think the smart money is on the continued growth and acceleration of viewership for college softball over college baseball. But I think both softball and baseball have shown themselves very well in the first year in the Big 12. I won't choose between the both. I think they both have promising futures in the Big 12. So for me as a sport, softball is the smart money. I'm not choosing between Cindy Ball Malone and Rich Wallace. I think they both have their programs headed in the right direction in the Big 12.
You're right about both. I will caution that 7 years ago, if we did Around the Kingdom, we'd be talking about how great we're feeling with Greg Lovelady in the future of the baseball program after making the regional. So no guaranteed success moving forward. I think both. UCF needs to, we're talking about revenues and money and who you pay. Make sure you take care of baseball and softball. I think that's a key factor moving forward. Do these sports get taken care of? Because I would argue what set baseball back in Conference USA was they didn't support baseball financially. And I think they just assumed, well, you won in the A-Sun all the time. Why not keep winning? Well, it didn't work out that way. I think softball is the more exciting product. Television clearly loves softball. And I got to be honest with you, Trace. I like college baseball. But that UCF Oklahoma State game, the one that UCF won in extra innings, that was a rough watch over 4 hours. Even the UCF Texas game that you and I were at, you were spending more time watching the Cubs on your phone than the big college baseball game.
All right, we'll be real quick on this for many reasons, like we're running out of time. And then I'm not happy about the topic. This prop bet off the top of your head last week, would UCF be one of the last 4 in? UCF was a solid lock. It shouldn't have been one of the last 4 in. This is a terrible result. I continue to fall behind since my math snafu several weeks back. You get that one. But even you were surprised that UCF was one of the last 4 in. What do you got this week, Elo? What's off the top of your head? I need to start coming up with some of these and turn the tables on.
Fair enough. Well, we just mentioned softball and baseball. Both were Tallahassee. Softball went 1-2 in the softball regionals in Tallahassee, losing at 3 a.m. on a regional Sunday, basically Sunday morning against Auburn. Mike, prop bet to you. Will baseball have more wins than softball in Tallahassee regional? And yes or no?
I'm going push. 1 win.
Push. Man, you don't like playing any games. You don't like playing the silly game. I don't know how Adam deals with it.
What? Push.
Push. I will go.
1 win.
I will go over.
All right. Time to bring back in Adam. Educate us, Adam.
Elo, welcome to my nightmare trying to get Trace to pick anything. All right, here we go. You talked about Black Friday. The only other game on that day, gents, that seems any bit interesting, Oklahoma State's playing Colorado, so UCF could have a pretty good spot there. You guys talked about TNT. Those games are December 2021, first-round games. According to Reddit, TNT will use ESPN announcers in ESPN production just on TNT, so you might not see any new announcers there. This week in the new world of college athletics, as you mentioned, Ross Dellinger reports SEC may have a health availability report that they're testing out this year. And Jaden Rashada, a quarterback at Georgia, is suing the head coach of the University of Florida for NIL. So welcome back to your world in college athletics. You talked about some of the show me the money stuff. I am not smart enough to know this, but I saw an interview by Rich Ford on the Lebitard show this week. That's very interesting. He's a former lawyer. Check him out at dykmedia.io. Had a lot of insight on what the lawsuits mean, the order of the lawsuits, and what can happen next. Title IX is a big part of that too. Again, dykmedia.io if you want to get smarter there. And he talked about baseball. Elo, the 24 ERA for UCF pitching staff, 4.4. The 23 ERA, 5.8. So some kudos to pitching coach Drew Thomas for getting that staff turned around.
Thank you, Adam. By the way, I'm not holding my breath for the Gus Malzahn injury report being released every week. What's that going to look like? One more thing before we go. At Stats of War ran 10,000 simulations for the field in the NCAA tournament. UCF has a 21% chance of making it to a super regional. Also in the regional, FSU 46%, Alabama 25%, and Stetson just under 8%, Elo. So you're saying there is a chance, Elo, 21% chance that UCF makes it to a super regional. Look for new episodes midweek every week on the Sons of UCF YouTube channel and wherever you get that downloadable content in your audio feeds. For Adam Eaton and Eric Lopez, I'm Trace Trylko. Thanks everyone for watching this week's Around the Kingdom.